as an actor, people go, oh my God, the writing. And you're like, yeah, but also, I don't know, did you see me in it? Because, you know.
Who wrote that play? Hey, what about that scene, man?
What about that first maid? She was, I don't know about that.
Yeah, but welcome to the podcast. I really appreciate you coming on.
Oh, well, thank you for having
really
me.
appreciate you coming on, man. Grew up in Plaistow, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think of it more West Ham. I was sort of a little bit further over from... Even though it's like literally a quarter of a mile difference or something, it's like, no, West Ham.
Yeah. I used to live in East London when I first rented. East London is interesting because, for me anyway, being from South London, it's a bit like South, how everywhere is right next to each other.
Mm-hmm. And you mean it's cramped?
Yeah, but I found East London very much like South London almost.
Yeah.
It was almost like, oh, right. Like how I feel like in South London you have areas where, in Peckham, got a massive African community, predominantly a lot of Nigerian people in Peckham, whereas it's kind of the same where you drive down the road, you're in Ilford, massive Asian community. It's very, very, very similar. Do you know what I mean? What was it like for you growing up in East London?
Well, son, let me tell you what it was like in the 1970s. Like in what?
No, because I feel like East London is so different now. You've got half of East London, which is kind of change. It's got this like gentrification to it. That, like, even where I lived in East London, and I go through there now, or even... Again, I think I moved there in 2018, and it's built up so much that I'm like, oh my God, this area's changed even in 2018. Yeah. So I can't imagine what the landscape would have been like when you was there and you was raised there in East London. Because I feel like East London's always been like, yeah, you know, you got to do your hard graft in East London.
That was what it was like. I mean? That's my recollection of it. Like, I grew up in the 70s in Stratford and West Ham. That was, you know, my area. And it was quite a white area at the time. My school pictures, you know, there would have been, I guess, let's say in a class of 30, there would have been like 2 black kids, 3 black kids, a couple of Asian kids, mainly white. And it was very like, pull yourself up by your bootstraps, and you know what I mean? Like we had street parties for one of the Queen's Jubilees. I can't remember which one. Yeah. And West Ham won the FA Cup, so there was a street party for it. It was proper like East End type. So we had a rag and bone man. I remember that. Jesus, I'm aging myself. But literally a guy with a cart with a bell. Yeah, just wanting your old crap.
I know with East London, because it has this like. It's very like, back in the day it was very like industrial. You're talking warehouses and when boats are coming in and stuff, and you have such a working class hub there of the East End. What was it like being surrounded by that kind of community as such? Because I feel like when you're in that kind of community, it makes you just want to work hard. I grew up in South London as a kid in the 90s, and again, like, everyone was pretty much working class, which is, I feel like the landscape of London in itself has changed a bit now, because people kind of go further and further out a little bit. Everyone's kind of getting pushed out, but I can't imagine what that would have been like growing up in the 70s, where, you know, you're still quite marginalised as a group of like Asian people and black people, but was there a sense of togetherness because everyone was kind of in the same thing? Does that make sense?
Yeah, you know what? To be honest, it's hard for me to say because I was a kid, so I wasn't necessarily aware of that. I know that, you know, as my mum was an immigrant, and as is common with immigrant families, the mentality was just work hard. So that's maybe more where that came from, rather than necessarily the community around me. Is just like, get a good education, get a good job, you know, get security, because when you come from another country, you don't have any of those things, and that's the first thing that you want to set up for yourself. Which is why, you know, when you know, African parents have kids who want to go into the arts, they're just like, what are you doing? Did I come here for that? You know what I mean?
How did your mum react once you did start kind of delving? Am I correct in saying you kind of started behind the camera at first?
So I went to a college called Ravensbourne. It's a uni now, but they basically focus on design and the arts. So they had like a fashion school, 3D graphics, fine art. and they had a TV school, and it had a really good reputation, and it taught people basically how to make TV programs. So if you were, but from a technical perspective mainly.
Yeah.
So like if you wanted to be a camera operator, Ravensbourne was the place you wanted to go. If you wanted to be a sound designer, you know, that was the place that you went. And we had a meet-up, actually, of my class group, you know, my year group, and everyone was doing pretty much what they did at college. And I realised I was so in the wrong course. I should not have been there. But I did that. And then I had like 10 years working in TV post-production, because it sets you up. Once you can say, I don't know what the situation is now, but back then, if you could say you had been to Ravensbourne, you know, you could leapfrog a couple of levels of, you know, being a runner and all this sort of stuff, because you'd had such good training. So obviously I didn't pay attention at all when I was there, and I just squandered the time. So I didn't quite get as many leapfrogs as maybe some of my peers, but yeah, I ended up working in TV post-production for and broadcast technology for about 10 years. And then I was like, well, this isn't ever what I wanted to do.
That's so interesting, because I feel like a lot of people are very much, they want to be front and centre of when it comes to television or whatever they do, and you hear people's stories like, well, I went to stage school and I was singing, and this was always going to be the natural progression. Because I feel like whenever I meet people now and they're behind the camera, they're people that are like, no, I couldn't do what you done. I don't mind being a producer, a director, and doing all the heavy lifting, which I look at from someone who's on the camera. I'm like, I don't know how. Like the producers, I don't know how people do that. That looks like the most stressful job in entertainment. Like directing to some degree, where you're like, oh, okay, but sometimes directors do look quite cool. You know, when they've got their DOP and then they're looking and like, okay, that's great, okay, all right, if you can do that, and I'll sit there, I'm like, right, this looks quite all right, you know. But producers, I sit there and they're like, okay, great, guys, can we have a meeting after set, because we just need to talk about the budget. And you sit there and you're like, I can't imagine how stressful this is being a producer. So with that 10 years of experience, when was the kind of the light bulb moment where you would kind of say to yourself, do you know what, I kind of want to change from this? Do you know what I mean?
So light bulb moment was probably, so I ended, the last sort of proper job I did in that world was post-production supervisor, which is basically organising all the editing and everything that happens once the stuff's been shot. And I was working on a job. ITV created this soap that, unfortunately, God rest its soul, died a death after a couple of years. But we were all on the same site. And so I got to meet a lot of the actors and spend time with them and, you know, become friends with them and stuff. And just over time, I realised it wasn't that I wanted to suddenly start acting. It's what I'd always wanted to do. But I'd never allowed myself to believe that that was possible. And I was becoming aware of that. You know, it almost been like packed away. And you were talking about like culturally what was surrounding me in the East End growing up. Well, one of the things was a belief that I took in was someone like me can't do something like that. It just didn't compute that, you know, you can come from this background and then go off and do something like that. So I just dismissed it and thought, all right, well, Ravensbourne and being behind the cameras, that's kind of close. But you can have a, you know, sensible, secure, you know, job and all the rest of it. So I'll try that. Anyway, so it got to like 10 years down the line of doing that and, you know, hanging out with these actors, and just found myself asking them more and more about how did you get into it and how do you actually become an actor, and then they're like, drama school, and I'm like, well, I'm not going to do full-time drama school. At 29 I told myself I was too old. It's like, okay. And so I thought, all right, I'll do lots of short courses and I'll treat every job that I do as an apprenticeship and then just go from there. So that's basically what I did. So it was that it wasn't that I wasn't enjoying what I was doing, but I could just feel that it wasn't, you know, like a pinball machine where everything lights up. Like only some of me was lighting up, whereas I had the sense that being a creative was going to get the whole pinball machine lit up. Does that make sense?
What's so interesting, I think the first time I seen you on television was doing stand-up. I definitely vividly remember you on Live at the Apollo, because I feel like you was on Live at the Apollo during the glory days. I vividly remember you on that, but I know you done stand-up before that. How did you make the transition to being on the screen, because you do a lot of stuff. You're an author, you're an actress, you're a stand-up comic. There's a lot of you have a lot of strings to your bow, which at a time I feel like in television, seeing a black woman on television, and you'd be like, oh, like this person does stand-up, but knowing, I guess, for yourself, where you're like, well, no, like I have to try and do a bit of everything. I couldn't just be just this one thing. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
How did you get into stand-up?
Good question. So I was, acting, and I was getting a little bit of telly here and there, and was doing a lot of theatre, and then over time, the auditions started drying up. And so it'd be fewer and further in between before I'd be going on stage or being in front of a casting director. And then when I was getting stage fright. And I was saying to myself, like, this is just going to compound. You know what I mean? It's just going to get worse and worse. What can I do to give myself ownership where I'm not waiting for somebody to give me permission so that I can just perform and just be out there?
Yeah.
And then so I started Googling like people that I really respected, like Tamika and stuff like that. It's like, what did they do? Jocelyn. So what did they do? They were all stand-ups. Nah, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
And then it just gained momentum. And then a mate of mine, there was what do they call it? Comedy Idol. Jimmy Carr's Comedy Idol at the Comedy Store, and it wasn't broadcast, but people could enter, and there was a final. So we went to support a friend, and he won. And I don't know, but the buzz from that, and me having Googled all these other comedy actresses, and then someone goes, there's a course that you can do. Oh yeah, my friend who'd won this thing, he'd done the Amuse Moose course.
Oh yeah, I've done that. Yeah, I didn't do the course, I've done the competition.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
So
yes.
And I was like, okay, all right, let me just try the course. I'll do the course. So I did the 12 weeks, and I was finding my groove with it. But then the night of the, this showcase or whatever, I could barely speak. I remember pacing the back of the room. As I was pacing, I just had this moment of clarity. It's just like, why are you doing this if it's making you feel like this? Either stop feeling like this or don't do it.
Yeah.
So I went on. I remember I did a routine about Arsenal because I was stewarding there at the time. And 5 minutes went by like that. And afterwards, I was just like, in my head, I'm like, I'm hooked. I didn't think I was going to do it again after that, but I was hooked.
Did it go well?
Yeah.
You got the laughs?
Yeah. But I'm going to say, yeah, I smashed it, but it was a warm audience. You know what I mean? It was all friends and family.
Okay, yeah.
But afterwards, someone comes up to me and he goes, you should enter Funny Women. And I was like, all right, mate. I've just literally, because for me, when I heard Funny Woman Award, I thought that was like the Oscars and the thing. I didn't realise it's a competition.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So when someone came up to me after my first gig and said that, I was just like, okay, calm yourself. But actually, he was just saying, enter a competition.
Yeah.
So that was the start of it.
So getting that bug of doing stand-up, how was that different for you to acting? Because I feel like for me, it was probably the opposite, where I'd done a bit of acting and not anything on television, well, a few bits like CBBC, for example, but I was always doing stand-up. But for me, stand-up was always the thing that I was like, this thing, though, is just different. Like, I liked acting, but I didn't get that rush and that bug the first time I got to go on screen. I didn't get that. Because I think acting, for me, it was such an ensemble cast, and you've got everyone that brings something to it, and I love working in a team, but stand-up gave me this, I can try that again and perfect it and keep perfecting it until I'm happy with it, and even when I'm happy with it, then I can change it even again. And acting had a feeling for me, was that you do it on stage, sometimes you mess up your line and it's in your head and you're like, I want to do it again. Be like, that's it, stage play's done now. Yeah. So I think I was probably the opposite in terms of comedy was the one that I really stuck with. And I just looked at acting, I was like, we'll get to you once that thing happens. Do you know what I mean? So for you, of getting that bug where you're like, I really enjoy this, what was it like where you're looking at this other thing of acting, where you're like, this acting thing isn't working, but this comedy thing is. But I also like acting. What is your favourite when it comes to both crafts? Because I think they both bring something different.
Yeah, 100%. And I think you're right in that with acting, there's so much that's outside of your control. And there's so much outside of your control. But with comedy, you get to write it. You get to decide how it's performed. You get to decide pretty much when you perform it. You get immediate feedback, which is immediately gratifying if it's good feedback. You know, whereas acting, people, if you're in something great as an actor, you know, people go, oh my God, the writing. And you're like, but also, I don't know, did you see me in it? Because, you know.
Who wrote that play? Hey, what about that scene, man?
What about that first maid? She was, I don't know about that. But yeah, so you've got so much more control with stand-up. But I don't have a favourite. It's just they're different things. I mean, I don't do stand-up anymore. But at the time, I didn't feel like I was choosing. I felt like I was supplementing, like, because acting was so sparse, I just wanted to just be doing something. And so I had something I could do, and I could do it all in the evening. So it didn't affect the sort of survival job that I was doing. And I treated it almost felt like a game, because I don't know how the scene is now, but a lot of stuff I was doing wasn't paid. It was a lot of open mics and you know, whatever. So it was just kind of a game. How many gigs can I get? How can I go from 5? You know, when you're starting out and people ask you how many gigs you've done.
That's when you count the gigs. I'm on my 20th gig. Wow.
I know. And I remember saying to when Daniel Lawrence Taylor was still doing stand-up, and I remember him asking me, like, how many gigs you've done, and I was like, 25. Like, it was a lot. But so you I just felt like it was a game. Like, let me see how many I can get. Let me see how good I can get. Let me see if I can get that killer 10 minutes or 5 minutes to start with, then 10, then 20. And then someone paid me. And it was like, honestly, it was like 20 quid or something like that. But I just felt like...
I think that the craziest thing when it comes to stand-up is you do it, especially when you do it and you enjoy it, you just do it because you like, I just want to see how better I can get at this thing and different audiences. But that moment when you get paid feels a bit, for me anyway, it felt a bit like, oh, I feel a bit bad, I'm taking this money. But also,
Did you?
Yeah, because I done a show which was a competition, which was called a Your Mum competition.
Yeah.
And I'd done a little bit of stand-up before then, but it was this competition where you'd go on and you'd say something about another comedian's mum. So your mum is this and your mum is that. I won the competition and I got £50. And I was like, oh my God, I felt like I've cheated the system, because like I've just said some stuff. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
And it was funny stuff, but I've just said some stuff. But there was the first time getting paid and holding the money in my hand, cash in hand, where you're like, oh, this is quite cool, man, to get paid for it. But I do feel like I've kind of like, don't really feel like I've earned this.
Really?
If that makes sense.
No such guilt.
Yeah. Oh no, don't get me wrong. We went and got pizza, and the whole facade was like, I want to do this again tomorrow and next week. But why? I wanted to ask, why don't you do stand up anymore? What made you stop?
So let's see. I mean, I don't know if there's a simple answer, and I'm still sort of making sense of it myself. So, like, I look back recently on my stand-up career, and I realised that I burned very brightly for a very short amount of time. I thought, you know, because basically my first proper good telly was Mock the Week, and that was 2010. Yeah. And my second live at the Apollo was 2012. And I remember at that point I'd had enough.
Oh wow!
And I didn't realise that it was only those 2-3 years was my, you know, time on TV. Yeah. And I was doing, you know, panel shows and all the rest of it. I did Mock the Week 5 times or something, but I was aware that it was a weird feeling. Like there was a distance starting to open up between who I was on stage and who I was as a person. And I even, like, at times referred to her in the third person, like, how she dressed and all the rest of it was becoming not me. And
because I always felt as a comic he was very stylish on stage.
Oh, thanks, babes.
Yeah, I mean, he was very, very stylish. I always remember that.
Thank you. Well, there was a bit of contribution to that, and not to say that I didn't love how I looked, and I was participating in that, but like I was in the first season of Stand Up for the Week, and Did you ever meet Addison Cresswell?
No, I don't think I met Addison
But
Cresswell.
you know who
Yes.
he is. So Addison Cresswell was kind of the visionary behind Open Mic and Off the Curb, who make a lot of the stand-up we see on telly. And he passed a few years ago, but he was very clear on how to shape a comedy persona sort of thing. And he was infamously, he always used to get people in a headlock. So I did the what do you call it, we did like a pilot episode, like I think it was a non-broadcast pilot episode of Stand Up for the Week. And I wasn't sure if I had the job or not. So I went and I don't know, I was just wearing stuff that I had at home. And he got me in this headlock and he's like, do you reckon you can handle 10 episodes? I was like, yeah, I can. Have somebody kind of choking me. And he was like, yeah, I want to see that Hackney girl come out of you. And I was like, I'm from Stratford. And he's like, yeah, let's see that Hackney girl. And he's like, had all these ideas about how he wanted me to dress and, you know, the persona. So that's where the hair and the this and the da-da-da and the short skirts and all that. It was sort of, we collaborated to create it, so I don't want it to sound like he told me what to wear. Yeah. I really loved it, and you know, they got a stylist in, and I was like yay or nay and stuff. So you know, I was very much in control of it. But that persona, that kind of fiery, take no nonsense, you know, alpha female kind of persona, I started to there was a distance opening up. Okay. And I'm still not really sure why. And then I started getting, depression. It just like properly kicked in. I was like, I'm not sure. It's very hard to go on stage when you're actually in the midst of like acute depression. So, you know, the sort of, you know, people talk about struggling to get out of bed, that type of thing. That's where I was at. It was a difficult time. And I came through the other side. And I went to live in the States, and just to free myself up a little bit and not be in on the rails that I was on, because that's what I felt like my life was on rails and I didn't really have any say. And I sort of took myself off to the States just for a break, and realised that actually I think I might be done with stand-up.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, I navigate by heart, you know, like if it doesn't feel right anymore, then I'm setting it aside. And, you know, some of my friends were like, you're at the peak of your career as a stand-up, like, you know, the world's your oyster almost, and you're walking away from it. But I was like, it doesn't work for me anymore. And actually, in hindsight, I can see it's not necessarily stand-up, it's the comedy world. Yeah. So all the panel show business, all that was what was getting me down, actually, and all the hoops you have to jump through, and all the conversations with commissioners, like when you pitch something, and it's like, we really love what you're doing. We would really love to work with you, but we already are developing something like that. What else have you got? It's just like the amount of times I've had that conversation. It was just too much. It was too much.
And I guess as well, like being in the space you was in, and you're doing these very big exposing shows, Mock the Week, which was on every week. I felt like anytime there was a big comic who was huge in Edinburgh, you know, you'd kind of go on that show, you'd be on the panel, and you could become a huge star just from the back of television shows. That's why I mentioned, you know, doing Live at the Apollo during those kind of glory days, because I would see someone, and before I know it, they're on tour, you know, and they, you know, there's a repeats, there's people in the audience. Did you feel like you had a lot of support in people, like in terms of like within your industry, other comics you could reach out to and speak to? Did you feel quite alone, or was there people that you was able to kind of connect with, and how you felt that had a similar experience?
That's a good question. I'm gonna say not really, but not because that was probably more on me than anything anybody, you know. I don't really feel like that. I mean, there were some people, you start to get a sense, I don't know if you must have experienced this, of other people's jealousy. And and it's not even like, the weird thing about jealousy is it's nothing to do with you. Yeah. It's not really about what you're doing, or it's about them, but they project it onto you. So I've had people who I guess maybe think because we're from a similar background or something like that they've directed stuff at me, and even like low-key tried to sabotage at times and stuff. And it's like, that's jarring, because you're just like, wow, I revered you, and it is true, like sometimes never meet your heroes, you know. But I don't know. It's an interesting thing, because I definitely couldn't blame the comedy world and say I had no support, and because when I did have interactions with people and I was honest, there was definitely support. And actually, on Mock the Week, my first Mock the Week was literally the week after Frankie Boyle left. And I think that, as brilliant as Frankie is, I think that his persona took up a lot of air in the room, and so there was more air, there was more available, and so there was a bit more free flowing. I remember going for the when you have to sort of step into the middle and do like, I remember one, I think it was Andy Parsons, he went after you. So I don't think that energy would have been there previously. So as much as people say like it's all combative and and stuff like that, and it is, but actually him, Chris Addison, I was on an episode with them, they were really lovely about the app, and they were like, really well done, we know this is tough, but you did a good job. So where it was possible, people were supportive, but I didn't go looking, I guess. I think maybe that's it. I didn't go looking for support. Maybe I should have.
You said you went to America. Where did you go in America when you went to
LA?
Oh, you went to LA?
Yeah, are there other parts? If you're a comedian, are there other bits?
I know some people go to New York.
Yes, that's true, yeah.
But so what was LA like for you as a black British comic and actress, being in LA at that time? What was it? Was it just escapism? Was it to work? Was it to kind of re-find yourself in some in aspects? Yeah,
all of that. Yeah, I mean, at first I went just as a break, and then I got a job so I could go out there to work and I had a green card visa. So I got to stay. But my thing was, I am not here for the lifestyle. Okay. If I don't work, I'm going home. I'm not gonna, become a nurse or something just to be able to stay. As sunny as it is.
It's beautiful. The sun is.
And it really was.
Every day.
Every day. Like no rain.
No rain at all. And even when it did rain, it would be like, what is raining?
I know. People they just stay in, wouldn't they? Because they're just like, I can't drive in this. So they would stay in and not, which I found really strange. But anyway, so as a black British woman out there, I mean, obviously you're a novelty. You work that angle, but also for auditions, I think for the most part I was auditioning with an American accent, so you're sort of having to tread a line. I got pulled over by the police. I did what it turns out was two very illegal moves in my car because I was lost. Okay. But as soon as they heard my accent, they were just like, I was coming back from this club called Flappers, and I ended up in Griffiths
the comedy
Park.
club. Flappers. Yeah.
And I ended up in Griffiths Park, and obviously at night it's dead. And I ran 2 stop signs. Like I went one way, didn't see the stop sign, and then came back the other way, ran the same stop sign, because there's 4 on a junction. And there was like whoop 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 behind me, and I was like, and the thing about, they say, hands on the steering wheel, don't go into the glove compartment, all that sort of stuff. Well, I didn't know any of that, so that's I did all the opposite things. I was like rummaging in the glove compartment, thinking, they're going to want to see the rental papers for the car. Hands weren't on the steering wheel. I mean, Did
they pull out a gun or anything?
No, but I have had like attitude from almost like they wanted to. It was such a weird thing. I had my brother and sister-in-law in the car one time, and they pulled me over, and he was just like, have you been drinking tonight? I was like, no, I wasn't drinking at the time. And then he asked me a bunch of questions, like, how much have you had to drink tonight? I was like, are you deaf? Obviously, I didn't say that. But
you want to say that?
You want to say it because he was so aggy. And I was just like, what's this? Can't you hear? I'm from the United Kingdom. This shall not pass.
How long was you in the States for? How long did you live out there for?
So, on and off for 6 years. The culture is very different from Europe. I'm going to say Europe, not just the UK, but from Europe. Like, I missed architecture. It sounds like so random a thing to miss, but I missed architecture. I missed men dressing well. Like because it was so hot, you dress for practicality.
Yeah, you just shorts and t-shirt.
How can I survive 120 degree heat? Like, what can I wear? And also go inside somewhere that's freezing cold because everywhere's got AC.
Got the aircon on.
So I missed all that sort of stuff. So I think that's why I sort of stayed in the vicinity of people that were sort of culturally similar.
Did you miss the food?
Yeah, kind of, because actually, you know, one thing I noticed, I didn't realise with the supermarkets how, you know, poisonous basically American food is, essentially. You know, I remember buying a tin of tomatoes and looking on the ingredients and there was sugar in it. I was like, why? What are you planning?
Why is it so sweet?
Is this for cakes? Or like, it was really weird, like sugar. There's sugar in everything. Basically, when you go shopping, you have to stay around the outside. That's where the healthy stuff is, and everything inside.
It's in the inside. And it's so colourful because they're supermarkets.
Yeah, they're good at that.
They're like, it's like a day out. Whenever I'm there and I'm in Target, I'm like, this is so fun. You can, like, you know, go there with my friends and there's a basketball and then we're throwing around the ball. It's not like you go to like a Sainsbury's or Tesco and say, sorry, Scott, can you stop doing that? It's like, wow, you can play the music on the speaker as loud as you want, and it feels like a whole day out experience. When you was over there, what was the changing point of coming back? Was it the work? Because I know you said you kind of was out there for work and you missed things like architecture and stuff, but was it also like, I want to come back because that's home is where the heart is, but there's also work there? Because I feel like LA can kind of swallow people up where you're either going to stay for the vibes or you're like, I'm going to come home. And unless you, I think if you don't marry someone out there, then you're like, well, I'm just going to come back, you know?
That's it. Lord knows I tried. I mean, it was exactly that. My management weren't quite getting me where I wanted to get to. I mean, I can't say it's all on them, but I think it's about relationships, isn't it? It's like, who do your people know? It's not just about getting you in the room actually over there. It's really about, you know, what can they do behind the scenes? So I thought, all right, I'm going to look at this ballsy move. I'm going to do this. I'm going to leave them and with the power of intention alone manifest like great management. So I left them, could not get arrested. Nobody was interested. And so I was there, no reps, so no auditions. And actually I was writing my first book, so that was the only job I had. And which was fine because it meant I could focus on that, but I could see that my world was getting smaller, my life was getting smaller and smaller and smaller, and like got to the point where I was just only hanging out with a few people, not really engaging, and I just had this moment of clarity. Oh, it's time to go home. And it feels good when you feel like I'm ready to go home rather than I have to. Like you run out of money or you just, you know, whatever. So it felt good to make that choice. And the other thing is, like you say, like there was a lot going on in the UK, sort of like casting wise, and this is pre-COVID, so they weren't into self-tapes, i.e. people, you know, actors taping their own auditions at home and sending them in. They wanted to see people in person, and so I was one of the few people sending in tapes. And I was losing out to people that were in the room. I was like, if I'm not getting auditions here and I can't get a look in there because I'm self-taping, obviously, you know, I have to go home. And thank God, because that was 2019 and then COVID hit the following year.
So it's almost like it properly worked out for you leaving at that time. Because as an actress, your credits are, you know, from Casualty to, you know, Dr. Rogers. In Footballers' Wives, that show, if you could get a chance and bring that back, that show was so good, you know.
Do you want me to have a word?
Yeah, I used to love that show, you know. My mum used to let me watch it, even though it was like, I was like, oh, right, Mum, are you sure I should be watching this?
Okay.
But then, you know, you played Angela Parker in Sea of Souls as well. You also appeared in The Walking Dead, EastEnders.
Waking the Dead. I wish it was The Walking Dead. Yeah,
my bad.
Yeah.
Dyslexia.
No, you're all right. I just wish it was The Walking Dead. I love that show.
Part of me was like, Waking the Dead. But then, like, you've got such a vast, like, you got such vast credits as an actress, and it's interesting how like you leave stand up, and then you pursue acting, but you know, you also have, I guess, which feels like your passion project as an author as well. What's the thing that makes you wake up in the morning to want to do this? Because it's so interesting here you say that comedy was like, I don't want to go back on stage, but what does it take to still have that passion and have that get up and go to, okay, I want to audition for this, do a self-tape for that, I'm going to move to America, I'm going to write a book. And if anyone's ever written a book, you know how hard it is, and if anyone hasn't, anyone listening, I feel like it is one of the hardest things you can do, to put what's here on paper to make sense with said publisher being like, yeah, if you say it like that, say it like, you're like, yo, I can't, So how what does make you wake up, you know, every day to continue doing what you do that you love?
Well, I think one of the things that I discovered about myself in America that I was sort of almost embarrassed to say before I left was that I'm an artist. You know, I love creating. And I was embarrassed because, you know, the comedy or comedian persona is so strong, and declaring yourself an artist doesn't align with it. Taking yourself a bit seriously. You know what I mean? If you say you're an artist. Oh, an artist, are you? Doing the craft of comedy? Okay. So I was embarrassed to say that about myself, even though I felt it. And going to the States, I didn't realise, but actually part of that journey was about giving myself permission to call myself an artist, to allow myself to express myself as an artist, as a creative, and to know that because I've done that for myself, it doesn't matter what medium I'm working in. Creativity comes out in all directions. Yeah. You know, because I remember seeing some photos that have been taken by the actor Dennis Hopper, who's dead now. He's passed, but he was like prolific actor, very well respected. But it turns out he was a photographer too, very, very accomplished photographer. And I was like, huh? Oh, you don't have to just do one thing. You can do, your creativity is the fuel, and you can use it to power anything. Yeah. So as soon as I had that sort of moment of clarity, I was just like, oh, I remember as a kid always wanting to write. Well, let me see how that goes. It's fucking hard actually, but like, but I still did it. I wanted to express myself in that way. I love telling stories, and I just want to get better and better at it. And you can tell stories through your acting. You can tell stories through your stand-up as well, or you know, whatever it is. And so now, and actually from my time in America, I never felt constrained about like where that would get expressed. And so that's what wakes me up in the morning, is like, how can I tell stories that can change humanity? What stories can I tell today? Yeah. And I love the feeling of an idea coming. Like you just, I don't know if you have the same thing, but you're just watching somebody go about their business and you have a like, what if? You know what I mean? And I love zombie movies, and I'm like, how can I write my own zombie movie? Oh, what if? You know what I mean? So it's like that, and it's just constant, and it sounds like, oh, woe is me, like I'm bombarded by ideas, but it's actually a really beautiful feeling of ideas coming, and you're so excited about them. And the challenge I have is not running away with that one before I finish with this one. So that's, and I've realised, you know, as a creative, you're going to die with ideas untold, unexpressed or whatever. But that's part of, you know, being an artist, being a creative as well. Anyways, so that's kind of where my head's at in terms of what gets me out of bed. How can I realise all the ideas that I'm having? Yeah.
Do you think you'll ever go back to the stage? Because it seems like you have so many ideas, and having a little taste of going on the stage, has that changed anytime soon? Like in terms of like, oh, you know what? You know, maybe might want to go back on that stage again one day. Because I guess it's like you have these ideas, but then I guess, is there other ways that you want to tell? Do you know what I mean? Some of these ideas as well. Where you ever look at stand up and like, oh, you know what? Is the mic on? You know what I mean?
Oh gosh. Do you know, I have this theory that ideas are like entities, and they go where they feel like they can exist. And so I used to get a lot of stand up come to me like as feels like moments of inspiration, where I'm just like, let me just note down what's coming. sometimes I would have to actively write it. Sometimes I would just be dictating these ideas that would come. And it was like that for a really long time. And then I stopped doing stand-up and they stopped coming. And I thought, that fits, because they know that through me, they're not going to exist. These jokes aren't going to have a life. And then they've started coming again. Because
I feel like your life is so, you know, it's so interesting, but it's clearly very vivid of, you know, of someone that works in this industry, but is also very front facing, that does, you know, is an author, can act and do stand up, which as a comedian, that's perfect. You've got everything in your arsenal almost, to the point where sometimes it feels like you can just talk and people just listen, and before you know it, it's like, oh right, that's really, really funny. It's really interesting, which I've had at times when I've been on stage now. I might speak about therapy, and it's just me like, I don't really know where this is going. There's no joke in this. But I'm going to tell you about how traumatic this was of telling my therapist, and my audience sitting there like, oh, this is deep, but it's kind of funny to have this spin on it. But also, I think I know I'm also at a point now in my career where I kind of know what my audience wants a little bit. So I like to give them what they want, as opposed to let me just do this new thing, because the new thing I'll try on something different if I'm trying to write, you know, because I think writing is getting that onto paper. How do you deal with the challenges of that? Because I know trying to write a book myself, which was about me, hardest thing I've ever tried to do, ever. And I sat there and I worked with the publisher and we're typing it, and I was like, this is hard just trying to do this for me. How is it for you? Because, you know, like, you've got your novel, which is Asking for a Friend, a rom-com, you know, and that came out in 2021. So what is that like? Because you're creating fiction, and which I don't know if it has some truth to it, but it's almost like, okay, I have to create this thing that, you know, you're not going to see, which is a bit different for film and television, because you're like, we can cast a person.
That's it.
Yeah, you don't be just like, you know, when you sit in a room, you're like, yeah, great, thanks for coming in. Yeah. No, it's not the right one. Like, what is that like when you're writing? Like, because I've always wanted to write fiction, but I think I'm so used to writing fact with comedy.
Sure.
And I think a lot of people are like, well, I'm going to write from my experience.
When you're doing stuff for screen, the script is just a blueprint. It's just a direction of travel. But loads of people are going to make a contribution. Makeup, hair, cameras, blah, blah, blah. Everyone's going to make a contribution. Whereas when you're writing, you're doing everything. You're setting the camera angles, as it were, i.e. telling the audience where to focus. You're directing, you're casting, you're painting, you're the designer, you're painting the whole picture. And I think that's why it's so much harder than just writing a screenplay, for example. But I just trial and error. I call it naive arrogance, in the sense of I go into things thinking, how hard can it be? And then it turns out it's fucking hard, but like I just keep going anyway, because I'm in now. Do you know what I mean? Even though I tried to get out, I even said to my agent, I was like, what's the process of returning the advance? Like, how does that work? But I didn't in the end. And my friends were like, because I was like, I'm never doing that again, I can't. So when I started like book 2, they were like, girl, what's the thing you were saying about never doing that again? Because
I watched Michaela Cole's I May Destroy You, and, you know, it's about someone writing a book. You're in that as well, right? I
am, I'm a therapist,
And you look at that and you sit there and you go, oh my God, I didn't know it was that stressful writing a book. Was it interesting being part of that, knowing that you're like, well, this is kind of like, not my world in some ways, but I am, you know, I'm an actress, I'm a comedian, and I'm writing the novel. Was there a sense of like, I don't know, what's the word? I don't know the word. You know, like when you're in something and you're like, oh, this is
like meta or something.
Yeah, yes. Yeah,
I mean, to be honest with you, my character doesn't really interact with Arabella as an author. She's just more in the trauma of her life experiences. But I do often feel, not necessarily with I May Destroy, but it's kind of funny how like being an author is portrayed on TV, on TV and film, because people write books very quickly. They'll a couple of weeks and done, and I'm just like, oh my god, if only it took how long how they show it on film and TV.
How long does it take?
I mean, I think I might be a slow writer, so it took me all in. Each book has taken about 2.5 years.
Oh, wow.
But I'm doing other stuff in between. And I think maybe that's because I'm doing other stuff in between that's taken 2.5 years. So maybe if I was just flat out on it, 1.5 years it would take me. But I know like Lee Child, who writes the Reacher novels, he takes a year. But he's pretty much, I guess, working full time on that. So, it's a slow process, because it's not just getting the words down is one thing, but just editing, the crafting of the story and making those cuts where you're killing your darlings, getting rid of the stuff that doesn't work or isn't necessary, all that sort of stuff. It all takes time, and you can't fast track it. And I know obviously AI has become a thing now. When I was writing my first books, there was no meaningful AI options, and now people do have the choice of that. But I think art comes from the hard yards. It's not about trying to find a fast track. Use it as a tool for sure. I'm not a Luddite, but there's no substitute for just putting in the time.
And I guess that's the thing with sitting down and putting the words on paper as such, or typing it. There must feel a much, I don't know, it's like a sense of joy when you're like, well, I sat and wrote those words that are in that book.
Exactly.
And when I got the chance to do my own book, it was sitting there and seeing someone buy the book. I went to buy the book, and one guy was like, what's your and I was like, yeah. And I'm looking at my book because I was taking a picture of it. Yeah. And then I was like, this is a good one. And he goes, oh yeah, I'm gonna buy it, man. He's like, can you sign it? I said, yeah, why not? And I had this joy of like, I didn't get someone to be like, just make up some stuff about me and chuck it in the book, and then I'll proofread it. It was like I sat down with someone. I was like, here we go, and action. I'll tell you, because it wasn't a biography, because I was too young at that point. But it was this is me telling the story of me. And I didn't know that. I think I realized that there are some people that have books that are not even written by them. This blew my mind. I'm like, bro, this is a great book, man. I'm like, what? He had nothing to do with it, man. Yeah. So where you are now in your career, where you're an actress, you're an author, you're a stand-up comic, where do you start seeing the future of Andi, where you get to a point in your career where you kind of not so much get to your end, but you look at where you want to take your career and you say, I really like this thing and I wanted to stick to that? Or are you still in a place where you're like, I want to explore so much more to what this has to offer? Or are you just comfortable where you are and what you do now, if that makes sense? Because I feel like you've had a really eclectic life of growing up in East London and being behind the camera, which still blows my mind, because I don't meet that many people that have started off behind the camera, because you get to see everything. Like, you really get to be like, okay, this is how it all works. Yeah, it was super useful because of that. Yeah, and sometimes it's a lot of times it's the other way around, where I got on screen and I just wanted to sit in the office and be like, okay, cool, so what do you do? So I'm a researcher. Is it? So what do you use? Research everything. And again, I was just a sponge to that. But starting off behind the camera is so beneficial, because you're like, well, I know how this all works. Yeah. If I'm a presenter, I know whether I'm going to have open or closed talk back. Like, it's those things. What do you have whenever you used to present, like back in the day? Like, did you have an open or closed talk back?
I never really did any presenting.
But you had your own show, no? You had like a pilot.
Yeah, I mean, that was like a sketch thing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I was never... Yeah, I never had to navigate. Yeah. Although, actually, we did do a show called Tonightly. It was a sort of a trial thing. It was a few episodes of it. So I think it was 16 episodes over the summer, every night for like 3 weeks or 4 weeks or something like that. what do we have then? But yeah, I mean, it just did those 4 weeks and that was it. Never came back. And I remember the Sun did like a full page article about how much they hated us.
Is it?
Yeah.
Because I feel like the tabloids were like really like, that's where people really got their news from, tabloids and magazines at that time.
Yeah, because I mean, when would that have been? But 2008. So yeah, there wasn't really socials and stuff like that, social media. So yeah, it would have been, maybe gossip like online websites and stuff like that. But generally, like I think the magazines were still big, like Heat and Nuts and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, people read like actual
was there a
piece of
fear
paper.
sometimes because it was so front facing of being a black woman on television?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how much I was thinking about that sort of stuff at the time, because I'm just sort of head down trying to be great at my job, put a career together, realising that actually, because I remember getting into some things with people on Twitter at times and slowly realising like that's an unwinnable battle. So realising, just stay out of all those sort of conversations. It took a long time for me to learn that. But yeah, I sort of, I am and I'm not thinking about that, if that makes sense. Like there's sometimes, because I just think let me just be as good as I can rather than focusing on what I'm not getting. But then sometimes it does hit you and you just think, wow, like that, we've never had, black women doing this in comedy, or, there's never been a, black female presenter until like Chizzy on. I'm sorry, I didn't know. So those sorts of things, sometimes it hits you just like, wow.
Yeah.
But I try not to think about it too much, because otherwise it will just pull you under.
Yeah, because I think, whenever you get to this space of being on television, it can sometimes have this, it's like no one says it, but it's almost like, it's a privilege to be where you are. And it's like, no, I'm very good at what I do.
Yeah, that's it.
Let's just stop that whole privilege. Like, this is being gifted to me.
Yeah, like this is a space that should have been occupied by somebody else. So lucky you.
Yes, yeah.
Because I think sometimes as well, like I remember it being in LA, going to like an agent Q&A or something, and in their mind they were feeling like the diversity that they were seeing in certain shows was taking from some of their white actors. So there is that attitude that people won't necessarily say it out loud. That will be the quiet part, but that some people do have that thought, as though that was the entitlement, and that redressing that balance is taking from somebody who was entitled to it, rather than that maybe there were people from different demographics that are equally qualified for whatever the job is. Yeah,
it's interesting you saying that, because I feel like LA has always sometimes been a little bit of this mirage of this promised land for black entertainment a little bit. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Especially within the world of acting, of like, go out there and you'll be a success out there, because there's some success stories. And I think even when I've been out there and I've experienced it, you do the meetings, what's it called, the water bottle tour or whatever it is.
Right, yeah.
You do it and everyone is like, oh my God, man, I love your stuff, bro. Yeah. Like, amazing.
You're
man.
So funny.
Oh my God. Like, I was like watching you like literally last night. Yeah, like, and it was like, oh my God. Like I was
on YouTube and like, you're incredible.
And it's interesting because I feel like sometimes people can have this perception that is the promised land, that the grass is greener on that side. And because you can see someone that's in a massive hit show, and I've gone out there, and luckily when you go out there, there's other Brits that are out there, and you can kind of form a community. But it's such a small percentage. I think when you think of like people that have made a success out of there, and I think that's why it's so interesting asking you of, did you want to stay out there for the vibes? Because the vibes are vibing. And you hear I've heard stories of, I went to this place and I met that person and then we became friends and worked on this. And that does happen over there. And I just don't think that happens over here. You can't go to an event and be like, oh my God, bumped into David Beckham. Turns out he loves comedy. I'm only doing the David Beckham comedy show. I don't think that would ever happen personally over here. It can happen in America if you meet a basketball player, Shaq, and he's got his show. You hear of those stories, but it's really, I guess, refreshing hearing it from your take of like, yeah, do you know what? Come back home. I ain't got that much pride to kind of put myself in a position that's going to make me broke for the vibes, if that makes sense.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, and for me, it was very piecemeal. There was never a sense of flow to it. I get a job and then there'd be crickets for a little bit, and then again, and even like with the stand-ups, and my agents were quite connected in that respect. They could get me gigs and that I would do them, but the scene out there is so different from the UK scene. So much of it's not paid. They'll bounce you because Kevin Hart needs to try a 10 or something, and so you don't even know if you'll actually get to go on. Or you have to bring people to these things. It's just like, listen, I'm bringing jokes. Why do I have to bring an audience as well? I might as well just bring them to my house. So so it was it was hard. It was really hard. But I'm not. Look, there's also a lot of people in LA that will tell you how to do being in LA, and you have to not listen to them, and because obviously they're telling you what to do based on their failures. I think all I can say is what my experience was, but you may be one of those lucky people that goes out and does bump into Shaq and does end up doing such and such and getting on, all these great venues and stuff. But my experience wasn't that. So at the end of the day, you just have to make a judgment call and just go, I suspect there will be a global pandemic. I think I'm going to head home.
Bye. Sorry, I digress. I went off topic, but where do you, in terms of your end, where do you start? How do you start kind of painting that picture a little bit now, because you've got another novel coming out, which is March, March
12th, Most Wanted.
March 12th, which is a comedic novel as well.
Yeah, I mean, all three of them have got comedy through the spine of them, but the first two were more rom-coms. They were actually more like, the first one was more friendship rom-com, and then the next one was more like about family. It was about a blended family, but it was also based on my sort of stand-up experience as well. But this one is a crime caper. It's sort of a satirical crime caper, and I think I found the kind of genre that I really like. Not necessarily crime caper, but stuff that's got a social conscience to it. Because this is about a couple who are trying to get on the housing ladder. They're having no joy. They can't understand why they're getting priced out continually. So they decide to start a crime wave to tank house prices so that they can finally buy. And it's as much as like on the surface, it's a superficial, silly story about people taking matters into their own hands and in a really absurd way. It's really about, for me anyways, how unfair the whole housing market is, how we're in a housing crisis. How do people of a certain age, like millennials, how do they even get a foothold, let alone get anywhere above the first rung on the housing ladder? It just seems so unfair to me. It's about social fairness as well.
Oh, Andi, man, it's been such a pleasure to have you on the show. I feel like this is the first time we've properly met as well. Do you know what I mean? Normally I kind of meet someone in passing if it's like an event and stuff, and especially if I'm in the room and I just see other black people, I'm just like, hey, what's up, man?
That's it. Yeah. Or even across the room, you're just like,
You're like, hey, what's good, man? Yeah, good luck. Yeah, no, I'll catch you. Hello, you're right, yeah? Nice to meet you. Hey, good luck. But no, it's properly nice to like properly sit down and meet you, but also it's super inspiring how, like your career is spanned in a sense of behind the camera, on the camera, stand-up comedy. And comedy, I felt like when it really was in its heyday, like those shows live at the Apollo and, seeing a black woman on TV looking very stylish and like being like a forefront of mainstream comedy where the only other black faces that I would ever probably see is maybe like Nina Benjamin and... who else would it be? In terms of stand-up comedy, Lenny Henry. In terms of television, Little Miss Jocelyn. They're the focal people I would see on television at a time where I felt like, when you look back at it and they say, oh yeah, television is like, it's evolving. We've got BBC Three now and we're doing all this stuff and E4 and. You look at like reality television of like, oh, we had Big Brother at this time and things were progressive, but you're like, I don't think it was, I think you guys thought it was because the show was live and we had some random contestants that would go on the show, but I just don't feel like the art of it was diverse, and it was very rare to see people that look like myself on television. Do you know what I mean? And for that, you're a true pioneer. And to see you, in a space now of writing novels, I'm so excited to see where it goes, because already I feel like, this is a Netflix, limited series to come, or a film. Do you know what I mean? Already I'm invested. I'm like, I want to see this couple, man. I want to see them start doing some crime and shooting some weed. That's the stuff I really want to see. So it's a massive pleasure to just have you on the podcast.
Thank you.
And this has been your beginning, middle and end. Thank you very much, Andi. Appreciate you, man. Thank you so much, man. Hey, what's up? Thank you so much for listening to the podcast today. Now, a lot goes into making each episode. I know you hear my voice, but there's a team behind the scenes who help make it. And if you did enjoy it, I'd really, really appreciate if you could show the love to them by giving us 5 stars. And if you also have the time, please leave us a review. It's always appreciated, and we love reading the comments. And of course, we want to keep making it better. Thank you for listening, and have a great day. Peace.